Association conference here in Reno, Nevada. My name is Carter Easler. I'm the Director of Education at CBD Dog Health. I am a cannabis educator and advocate. I studied at the College of Integrative Veterinary Therapies, their program for cannabis science and veterinary medicine. And I am so excited to be here with my guest. This is Dr. Barrie Sands. She is a fantastic integrative veterinarian based in San Diego, California. And today we are going to be talking about the human-animal bond, and specifically the power of the actual energy that comes out of the heart, the energy fields that are created by ourselves and by our animals in space. The first thing, while we kind of get some people to be coming in here and collecting in the room, I wanted to see if you would be able to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to this place, why you chose to work with animals.
Great.
As a healer.
Yeah, thanks, Carter. It's really fun to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
So, my story starts when I was younger, not as a wee child, but as I got a little bit older. I came upon this realization that I wanted to be able to save every species on the planet.
It's a big task.
That was a big goal of mine. And no matter who it was, where it was, when I wanted to be able to know something about it that I can help it.
Yeah.
And my family is from a medical background, and they were asking me, well, you should be a doctor and be a medical doctor and treat humans. And I didn't want to do that because at that time I was sort of anti-human, where I thought that the humans are destroying the planet. I was part of interested in Greenpeace and the World Wildlife Fund and saving the endangered species of the world.
Sure.
And so it was, my understanding that humans were a big part of destruction. And I didn't want to spend my life saving them. I wanted to spend my life saving all of those from them.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So that led me on the road to my studies as a veterinarian. And sort of given the shorter version of this, but as I graduated from veterinary school, I decided that, I needed more training. It's just not enough. So I embarked on an internship in Manhattan at the Animal Medical Center. It's a small animal and surgery internship. And after that, I felt, really, really good about starting my career.
Right.
And so I started working in private practice. I did that for 4 years. And then I stopped doing that because I got really burnt out in that private practice sector realm.
Right.
From a variety of reasons. It was just really overwhelming for me. And so I went and did relief work for a while. And then after I did that for about 6 months, I went on a 6-month hiatus, just to take a break from all of it, because literally thinking back, I was in school from kindergarten till my internship. So, basically 25 years I have spent my life in school. So I decided to take a break.
Right.
And, in that break I traveled around and decided, what am I going to do next? And I was a big fan of medicine, and I love surgery, and I couldn't figure out which way I wanted to go. I wanted to specialize and become a resident in one of those. And so then I decided that I would...
Oh, is it not going to the right place? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Are we experiencing technical difficulties?
We might be experiencing technical difficulties.
I'm checking the YouTube channel to see if it's going to there.
Hello.
It's working on YouTube.
It's working on YouTube?
So I would keep going because if anything we can
talk
just...
to the YouTube people.
Hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube people.
Because we can always upload this onto Facebook since it's...
Okay. That's so weird.
We're experiencing electromagnetic technical difficulties.
Yes.
Please stand by.
Can you check the Facebook, the main CBD Dog Health page?
Maybe it's just saying that there's going to be a live.
Weird. Okay. Well, we may just upload it afterwards back to the main page.
So can you tell them on Facebook to go to the YouTube and that will upload it?
Yeah.
Yep.
People are tuning in, they know it's called
Great.
Yay.
Thank you for letting me know. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
Don't worry about it. We will get them to the video at some point. So
do I
keep going.
start
Just keep
off?
no,
start
keep going. Yeah, we're still going here.
Okay.
And
Well, hi.
hello
Welcome
again.
back. Hello
We're back.
again. So, gosh, where was I? I was
So
making
been in Manhattan.
Yep.
You've been in private practice.
I did relief work. I
Yep.
took a hiatus. Now I'm trying, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
So I couldn't decide between medicine and surgery. So I decided emergency critical care.
Okay.
Because that had the blend of both those worlds.
Right.
Surgery and medicine at its finest.
Yeah.
Conventional medicine at its finest.
Yeah.
So I head first dove into an emergency critical care practice.
Wow.
I've been at the same practice for the last 25 years.
You're still there.
And I'm still there.
Wow.
And I love it. I mean, there's a part of me that's an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
So I love the unknown. I love stepping into the ER, not knowing what's going to be in front of me and just flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah. Wow.
And just diving in and getting in there. And these are the ones that really need help. This is where my training was able to be its most beneficial, because trauma, seizures, debilitating moments is when conventional medicine needs to take place.
Right.
You know, that's when you do your blood transfusions and your antibiotics and your anti-inflammatories. Our pharmaceuticals are meant to hit fast and hard.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the realm.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, with chronic diseases, which we all seem to have, truly, in my opinion, has no business being in the conventional medical realm. It's the holistic, integrated therapies that really get you out of that crisis and back into wellness.
Wow.
So probably about, 8 years into my ER life, I decided I wanted to get further training in integrative medicine. So I became certified in acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, and then started learning other modalities like homeopathy, and nutrition is a big part, right? What we put in our bodies.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep, we talk about
towards
that a lot.
healing. So, understanding food therapies and functional medicine, and then body mechanics. How are we moving our bodies? Really connecting mind, body, spirit. And then taking that which led me into, the movement of energy and energy flow. And I feel like it's just been going from matter to energy as I'm transitioning, into my healing practices.
Right.
So now embracing, the effects of laser therapies and Reiki and quantum technologies, and understanding biofield electromagnetic physiologies and how we affect each other and how we affect ourselves.
Right.
Especially with the frequencies of our thoughts and emotions.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that has played a huge part. And the more and more I learn about energy medicine and the quantum relationship about all of that, the less I really feel the need for a lot of the things that we're doing.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it makes me think, you describing your journey and sort of like gradation between the layers of physical up to metaphysical, it kind of, the conversation about human-animal dynamics and, the way that we think of how we interact with our animals is the first step. First acknowledging that we do have an effect on each other, that we do share space and influence each other,
right.
That it's body language, that it's, pheromones and chemicals that are on a subconscious level, that it's facial expressions, tone, those things, and then graduating upwards to what you're talking about, these magnetic fields, these energy fields that surround us and pervade our space.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because it's new science to us, but it's not new science.
Yeah.
It was back in, I think, 1863.
Wow.
When they developed a piece of instrument called a magnetometer that was able to measure the magnetic field from a body.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started realizing that we're emitting something.
Right.
And then the whole conversation, led itself as, the years passed into, what kind of electromagnetic field do we have? And how are we influencing that field and the structure of that waveform?
Right.
I
want to show this image that you brought up, that kind of creates a visual representation of what you're talking about. Is
Yep,
that is that what you're talking about?
Yep, that's the sort of the toroidal field representation of what it actually looks like in of an electromagnetic field that radiates from us.
And this is something that you can measure in space.
Yep,
This is not some woo-woo thing. These
No,
are,
it's
we can
measurable.
sense this magnetic field around our bodies and
Mhm.
our pets' bodies.
Right. I mean, we can sense it.
Mhm.
Everyone knows you can feel it. But a lot of us are led to believe that if I can't see it, if I can't touch it, it doesn't
Right.
exist.
Right.
So when we start getting into the, kind of slowing down and really sensing our environment,
Mhm.
we feel this. We know these energies are out there.
Mhm.
And it has been measured at least 6 to 9 feet out from an individual,
Really?
and even further than that.
Wow.
And so people, just think of it, when you walk into a room,
Mhm.
like a party or a
Mhm.
crowded room, the minute you walk in, you can feel the energy pulses. You can tell that if it's a joyous environment or something just crazy just went down and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to step into that.
Yeah.
Your little spider sense of
Wow.
where you're going. Or when you're next to somebody,
Mhm.
everyone's personal space.
Yeah.
We all know where that is. And every day it changes.
Right.
Sometimes my personal space could be like 15 feet away.
Right.
And literally, I can create that.
Yes.
I can create a space where I can walk in and no one will be in my radius 15 feet.
Right. And you can also, this is something that I'm speaking from experience. You can expand, you can open it, and you can close it.
Yes.
Yes. And you can choose to let people in, or you can close it. And sometimes it's not by choice.
Right.
Sometimes it is subconscious and a factor of how we're acting, probably what we're eating, our health and wellness status.
Right. All the things that we're putting into our bodies. But we do know that our emotional state and our thoughts are the prime effector of the quality of the wave and how big it is around us. When we're in a state of sort of negative emotions like sadness or despair, anxiety, fear, depression, you can feel it. As I'm saying it, you feel it. You feel it kind of shrinking in, and you kind of going down. The waveforms are slower, they're more erratic, and they're not the signal is distorted. And when you experience motions of elation, joy, care, appreciation, kindness, gratitude, love, you can, just by saying that, you feel you open up, you expand, and people around you will feel that as well. And so that leads us into that conversation of what is coherence. And
what is coherence? Good question.
Well, coherence is I feel like coherence is going to be a word that's going to be more common in the next few months, maybe over the next few years, like the word manifestation seems to be now. And I hear a lot of millennials talking about manifesting, and that word it's manifestation is in essence creating that electromagnetic field through your thoughts and your emotions, right? So your thoughts carry an electrical wave frequency, and your heart carries a magnetic frequency, and so what your intention and your emotion behind it creates an electromagnetic field that goes somewhere, right? So it's going out into this other field, which we call the unified field or the quantum matrix of all information, of possibilities and potentials that's out there. It's not woo-woo, it is science, and all that's been measured.
Right.
And
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So we as humans are so gifted with our intelligence and our intention, and the ability to, through meditation, I can practice that energy. I can practice pulling in and letting go and clearing out and focusing. How can we affect our animals? Is my dog meditating? How does he get into those flow states?
Yeah.
I think is a similar kind of, is a tangential concept.
It is. They pick up, animals are always operating from their hearts. We operate from two places. We operate from our analytical mind in our brain, where there's a lot of duality.
Mm.
You know, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong, pros and cons, and we spend a lot of our time up in here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the heart is a unified field. It has no polarity and no duality. And so it's the center and the seat of our love and our intelligence and intuition, you know, that connects to a lot of things. And animals naturally are in that space. And we communicate with them through that. And they pick up our signals that we're generating, but we're generating these signals from both places,
right?
Okay.
From
our mind, our thoughts, and our emotions. So think of it this way: the language of your mind are thoughts, and the language of the body is emotions.
Right. Yeah.
So when we are in a state of we all know that our dogs will immediately pick up on all of our emotions. You know,
Right.
if we're sad, I mean, they'll come up and comfort us. They want to be there. They want to be in our spaces.
Yeah.
And some dogs, when there's fighting in the house or a lot of turmoil, you'll see them get super quiet, and they'll go lay down and don't want to be a part of it. They don't know what to do. And then when you're all happy and laughing, I mean, we've all seen what happens to dogs when
they're like, they want to be in on the joke.
Yeah.
They're like, me too. What's funny?
Right. They're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Are we playing now? Are you doing this? Is this for real? And they get out of their minds.
Yeah.
Right. And cats, you talk about meditation. Cats meditate. They just sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just sit there and they're off in their own little world of, alpha waves and meditations.
Wow. Has there been you brought up alpha waves. So the brain waves that are measured, that can be measured, alpha, beta, gamma, all the different waves that we can sense what a person is feeling, whether they're in thought process, whether they're, we can understand a lot about somebody's cognition and presence through that. Have there been studies on animals about, do they have the same kind of brain functional waves as we do?
Yeah, but it's less important, than it is the heart frequencies.
Okay.
Because it's really, we have a set of frequencies that our bodies go through: beta, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma.
Okay.
And then
these are frequencies.
And these are frequencies.
Okay.
There's another one, epsilon, but we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
But like right now, you and I are in this beta form. Maybe a low beta because we're chilling and we're talking.
Yeah.
And then if I ask the audience, okay, audience, we're going to give you a test after this, and you're going to tell us what we just said. All of a sudden,
we're putting them in beta.
Yeah. Well, now you're in high beta.
Okay.
Because now you're saying, oh my God, I have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a different frequency.
Okay. Yep.
And so when we go into a meditative state and we decide to kind of bring it down, close it in, look within, and start to take these breaths, we're shifting our energy from a sympathetic tone of a fight or flight, that fight or flight, autonomic nervous system, sympathetic drive. And its sympathetic tone is not always about fear. So it's about excitement.
Right. Okay.
Right? You can be like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to do this. That's sympathetic.
Yeah.
Right? So when we create these smooth frequencies of connection, where our bodies become in alignment, which is called coherence, when we have an alignment of all of our physiological systems, when now the brain that's normally in duality and the heart that's unified, they're together. So the unified heart invites the brain to the conversation, and the brain actually becomes a unified field. And when that happens, it's called coherence. There's a harmonization of the heart and the brain.
Somebody on here commented coherence and the vagus nerve.
Yep.
What is the vagus nerve?
The vagus nerve it's this long nerve that goes throughout your body from your spinal cord, and it is the main nerve that is having the transmission for the parasympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
So when we do parasympathetic releases,
can you just describe what the parasympathetic nervous system is?
Yes. So
for everybody at home and
yes.
for me.
Yeah. So to put it simply,
Yeah.
the autonomic nervous system that we have controls everything in our body. 90% of our physiology is controlled by your nervous system. Your brain, your spinal cord, and all the things that kind of feed out to it.
Okay.
Like those little trees and branches of nerves.
Got it.
And you have two different branches. You have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And think of you as the car. You're a car.
Yep.
And the sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal.
Okay.
Right?
Directional.
It's the go.
Yeah.
The parasympathetic is the brake.
Ah, okay.
So the sympathetic is linked towards the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic is linked towards the rest and digest. So when you're in a state of meditation or calm, your parasympathetic nervous system is going to come online.
Wow.
And when that happens, there is regeneration of cells and systems in your body. And these two systems are always happening kind of at the same time. There's a dance.
Right.
Because the body is not one way or the other.
Right.
It's a dynamic interplay of energies.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the function of the endocannabinoid system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like that integrates really heavily. I mean, the receptors that are kind of the home of the endocannabinoid system are all throughout the central and peripheral nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
And regulate and bring back to homeostasis.
Right. Or this sort of dynamic homeostasis.
Yes.
Right. Because it's always moving.
Right.
And what we want to have happen, what coherence is, it's the balance, the ultimate balance between those two systems.
Right.
So that when you're not in coherence, it's kind of like being in the car and you're putting on the gas pedal, but you're riding the brake.
Right.
And it's kind of like this really jerky ride. Yep. But when you're in this, sort of alignment, it's a smooth flow between the two systems, and that coincides with what we call heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is its own extrapolation of data that tells us the beat to beat intervals of our hearts. Like we all have like a beats per minute.
Sure.
Your heart, you're an athlete and your beats per minute is like 60 beats a minute because you're an athlete.
Right.
Or if you're, running up a hill and all of a sudden you check your pulse rate or you're exercising, you may be maxing out at like 150, right? Beats per minute, but that's not heart rate variability. The variability is of those, 80 beats in a minute, there are intervals between each beat.
Okay.
And they're not the same. They're milliseconds apart.
Okay.
And so it's the variation of that that creates the optimum state of wellness. The more variability you have, the healthier you are.
Oh, really? I would have thought the opposite. I'd have thought the more regimented it is, the
anything
better.
That's stuck and stagnant is going to crash.
I see.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's the ability to kind of shift, navigate, change, because our bodies are in a state of flux, and all these different frequencies and oscillations are working all the time to sustain what we are as a body system.
Yeah.
And the nervous system has to go along with it. It has to make these quick little changes.
Yeah.
To accommodate for all that fluctuation.
Wow.
I mean, you don't really feel that, but you do have control over it.
And I'm sure that there's another side. The other side of that is too much variability.
Right.
If there's too much variability, then you have another problem.
Right. So too much variability can lend itself to arrhythmias. Yeah. So like usually there's more problems physiologically that are associated with lack of variability than there are too much variability.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. But where are we going from here?
So, well, can we talk about how does that, the heart rate and how we affect our pets?
Yeah.
How does our, because a lot of what we're talking about is, helping our animals by helping ourselves, really.
Exactly.
Starting with, the source of the energy. Right. And knowing that they are also giving some to you, but being intentional about how we're affecting them.
Right. So the reason why I'm a certified trainer for the Institute of Heart Math. And Heart Math is the organization that's founded in 1991 that has done a lot of scientific research on the intuitive nature of the heart and all of the that ability to go into coherence and what that means energetically, the mapping of the electromagnetic fields, how we can change it, how we adjust it, the importance of it. So there's, on the heartmath.org, tons of information, lots of research.
Heartmath.org.
Yeah. Cool. So the reason why I did that was because in my emergency practice over the last 25 years, I've noticed an incredible amount of cases where the animals show up with the same disease as their owners. Right. And honestly, if you ask veterinarians, have you ever noticed that your patients have the same disease as their owners?
Right.
Everyone says, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Your hypertensive dog comes in with an owner that's totally stressed out.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, oh, yeah. But it's so this, oh, yeah, is a very interesting phenomenon of like, so, okay, so we see it, but how is this happening? Like I've seen some, the emotional, I'm anxious, my dog's anxious is an easy correlation, right? We can kind of understand how that is. Because when you sit next to an anxious person, you start getting anxious too.
Absolutely.
Right? Unless you ground yourself and you kind of admit healing ways that way to calm them down.
Right.
But what is really interesting is I've seen really weird things like brain tumors or kidney tumors or immune-mediated diseases, cardiac arrhythmias, certain cancers, inflammatory diseases that I've seen that are really weirdly specific.
Wow.
I had a client of mine who asked me, her little Sheltie was in our hospital with a condition called Immune-Mediated Thrombocytopenia. And that just means that your immune system is attacking your platelets. The platelets are the cells that help you clot your blood. And so the client was visiting with her dog, and she asked me, she says, Dr. Sands, can I ask you a question? It may sound weird. And I was like, sure, ask me. She says, do you think I gave this to my dog? And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Why do you ask me? She says, well, because I have immune-mediated thrombocytopenia. And I said, well, who's the dog? You and your husband live with the dog. Who is the dog bonded to? Because it's always one that the dog is more, closer to. Yeah. She said, well, he's my dog. Yeah. He's totally invested in me. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And so then I started seeing a lot of these coming up. Wow. So then that led me into saying, okay, that's interesting. If we have this effect, if we can have an effect that is where we're giving a disease to our dogs or sharing a disease, what is that mechanism and how is that getting in the dog? And we know that they pick up on our frequencies. So what frequencies are they picking up and how are we sending them out? So it kind of led me on this path to understand, how is that happening? And so when I found the HeartMath Institute, they were doing already studies around that, the biological relevance of magnetic fields from one to another. Yeah. Yeah. And so that led me to saying, well, let me help the people. Can I help people? Yeah. And I've seen lots of people coming into the ER in the worst states they're ever in. It's emergent, things happen, their animals are dying, and nobody handles that well. Right. They just don't. They go into a state of panic, fear, anger, frustration, despair, and that gets emoted onto the veterinarians. Right. They can't handle it emotionally. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to find a way to help them. I'd like to help them. Yes. And if I can help them gain a little bit more emotional control of their emotional landscape, well, then perhaps they can help their animals and we can go into more of a healing not in the ER, but in my holistic practice. Right. With the chronic diseases that I see. Wow. Yeah, I've spoken to a couple trainers. There's one in particular, her name is Heather Schass, and that's her whole gig. She wrote a book called Happy Owner, Happy Dog. And people come to her for dog training and they end up talking about their relationships with their partner. Right. And they come in and they're like, well, why do you want to know about my divorce? And she's like, well, it actually is important, Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had a little Yorkie that came in and she was just self-mutilating, just licking, chewing. And, I just kind of picked up on the owner's energy and I was like, is there anything going on in the house? She says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I think your dog is responding to something that's happening in your relationship. And she said, well, my husband and I have been fighting a lot, and we're going through a divorce. And I was like, okay, well, I suggest that you don't fight in front of the dog.
Yeah.
And if you do, just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, see what happens.
Right.
And get back to me in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so she did get back to me. And she said she's completely better.
Wow.
She stopped self-mutilating because
Wow.
we stopped fighting.
Yeah.
So most people will do things for their pets, and they won't do, you won't stop fighting with your spouse because your spouse asked you to, but you'll stop fighting with each other if the dog says you have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, do it for the dog, and so that's a beautiful thing that because we love them, because we do it for our dogs, and we do it for our pets, we do it for our cats and our horses and our birds, and because we love them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's such an unfamiliar place for us to be in all the time.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you get into the state of coherence, which is basically just getting quiet, breathing deep and slow, because when you start to breathe, and you can breathe any way you want. However, if you take 7 breaths or less in a minute, you will automatically shift into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So you just breathe slower and deeper. And that's usually about like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. That's like this magic number. And that gives you about 6 breaths in a minute.
Have you read the book Breath?
Yes.
It's incredible. And it talks all about that. And this is a really beautiful book that is a science-based look at how the way that we are breathing affects so much about how we're living, about our immunity, our cognition, our emotional life, and even physiological development, and the way that
how our face
our
structures
airways
change.
Because of it.
I was so amazed when I read that book, and we don't breathe enough. We don't breathe as mindfully. I mean, honestly, one of the things that we have control over in our bodies, and which is not much, which is a good thing, because if you had to think about all the processes that are going on, we would die.
Yeah.
Right? But we do have control over like 5 basic things. We have control over what we think, what we feel, what we choose to put in our bodies, what we eat, what we do with our bodies, how much we move. If we want to exercise or just be a couch potato, we have a choice. And even though it'll happen, you have control over the voluntary aspects of how you breathe and the quality of the breath and the deepness. I mean, most of us do these little shallow breathings, and then we don't realize that we're doing that until we decide to take a deep breath.
Right. I'm already just even talking about it. I'm like, oh, right.
Right. I gotta.
Right. Breathe. I need a sign on my door that just says breathe.
Well, they have I think your Apple Watch tells you when to breathe.
Okay, that's good.
They have like timings, like, okay, now it's time to breathe. Take a deep breath.
Okay.
And so then when we breathe,
you have a slide about breathing, don't you? I thought you.
Oh yeah, I have a slide. Yep, heart focused breathing. Yeah. So this is, basically when you focus your attention on the area of your heart, and then you imagine your breath flowing in and out of your chest, like you're kind of like your heart has little nostrils, if you want to. Sometimes people don't know where to find their heart, and so sometimes in a lot of indigenous practices, what they'll do is they'll place a hand over their chest area, because it is known that where you put your hand is where you put your attention on your body. Right. So put your hand on your heart or your finger or whatever, or your mind, and you just center it there and you start breathing. And then that aspect of breathing 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out would automatically shift you into that parasympathetic state and dial down your sympathetic responses. Right.
And I, in the times when I've had great mind-body connection, you can really, it's amazing how you can bring your awareness to your heart and feel the change in rate as you work with your breath from fast, from that beta wave kind of, and to sit back into a more alpha wave, rhythmic. Yep.
And you are, when you slow that down, your brain will go into that alpha wave, and when you're in this alpha wave state, is where the magic sort of happens.
Mhm.
I mean, the magic happens in other realms too,
Mhm.
but this is where you're at a slow enough frequency where you are actually in connection to the globe
Mm.
and the earth frequencies. Because we have, I mean, I don't think we have time to go into,
That's part 2.
yeah, like
and 3 and 4.
the geomagnetic frequencies, but that is where we are tapping in to the ionosphere and what's called Schumann resonances,
Right.
and the geomagnetic fields of the earth and the pulse of the earth. This is
Yeah.
when we're, as above, so below,
Right.
feet
Yeah.
on the ground, head in the sky. We're all connected. So that's the space.
Yeah.
And through that space, if you put in an emotional, elevated emotion of care, appreciation, gratitude, if you just think of something that you feel gratitude about, maybe it's your dog or your significant other, or just the fact that we're here together at this conference is super gratifying.
Yeah.
You put that in that space, and that elevated emotion mixed with that state of parasympathetic activation and those alpha waves will now put your body in the state of alignment and coherence.
Right.
It's the emotional content that drives that coherence. That's the important aspect. And then you push that out to your dog.
Right.
And you can actually shift. There's studies that will show that you will shift your animal, your dog, into a state of coherence. So now your frequencies are resonating with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done studies around that to show that, we're hooking every human and dog up to heart rate monitors, and seeing the shifts of the heart rate variability, shifting that to that
So
coherence.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think I have a slide that kind of shows what that looks like. Yeah, well, that's the our thoughts. I can't really read that, but it says our thoughts are our thoughts and our emotions affect our heart magnetic fields and energetically affect those around us as well, right? And our animals and how we're connected. And I don't know if I put in another slide that sort of visualizes.
I've got these 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, well, yeah, I had another.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2. But there's a smooth flow. It's like a nice little sine wave that's flowing like this when you're in coherence, and when you're not, it's erratic.
Right.
That's all over the place.
Right.
When you're frustrated, it looks like this.
Yeah.
And when you're in appreciation, it looks like that.
Right. Wow. It all really feeds into everything that we've been talking about this weekend here, and a lot of the practitioners that I've been talking to, we're talking about physical world things of, diet, nutrition, these things that are all part of a holistic approach.
Right.
And it's, it is not the lesson at the end of it all is it's not one silver bullet that's going to lead you to perfect health. It's if it were that easy, we wouldn't want it. We don't want it to be that easy.
Right.
We live in a beautiful dynamic world.
Yeah.
And so this is another tool and another way to approach your health and your animal's health that really is kind of an integral part of it.
Right. Right. And it's interesting about food therapies because it's sort of it works both ways. Right? You could start eating healthy foods and then you start feeling better.
Right.
However, when you start feeling better, you naturally resonate towards healthy foods.
Right.
Because when you're in this high vibrational state, of love, care, compassion, you don't want to eat that heavy, greasy hamburger, French fries.
Yeah.
You want that lighter sort of fresh salad with all those colors and the vibrancy of it. Like you just want that.
That's always what I want. And then I am hungover one day and I'm like, I want pizza.
Right.
I want spaghetti.
Right. And there's that comfort food.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's comforting. The foods that are comforting
Yeah.
are like the mashed potatoes and the mac and cheese.
Right.
And those things. And when we need comfort food is when we're like not feeling so good.
Yeah.
It matches our vibration. Eating for your vibrational frequencies.
Yeah. Definitely. Cool. Well, this is so lovely. I'm so glad to have you here and talking to us. I want to also give an opportunity before we sign off to let everybody know where to find you online so they can learn more from you, or anybody who's in the San Diego area who's looking for a really great vet who can help both you and your animal and the two together.
Yeah.
Is your website? What's your website?
Yeah, my website is drbarriesands.com.
DrBarrieSands.com.
Dr. Dr. barriesands.com.
Great. And we've got a book here we've got your book.
Yep. So I wrote a book. Well, being in the emergency room,
The Stupid Things My Human Does.
True Stories from the Animal ER. And the cat on the cover is actually my cat, Senor Queso. I don't know if you can...
Senor Queso?
Senor Queso. So Senor Queso actually narrated the book.
Narrated by Senor Queso.
So I just sort of translated it for him because he's like, look, we need to write a book. He was a blood donor in our hospital. And,
oh my goodness. You guys,
he's like,
look at the photo on the back. And his glasses.
He's like, I got to tell the world about this because I am so tired of seeing all these animals coming in that don't need to be here.
Yeah.
So let's write a book so people can read it, and then you're not going to have them show up.
Cool.
At least those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it's a fun book, and he's working on his other book right now. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for coming, and we will see you at our next live talk this afternoon with Dr. Katie Kangas.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.